Hi, my name's Michael Davies and I'm an artist, and what we're looking at here are different ways of using sound creatively with your user group, ways of depicting sound as well. And you don't need much equipment for this, just some source images and some sounds from the archive. This is a favourite with a lot of groups. It's looking back to modernist art, one of the greats of modernist art, Henri Matisse, and when he was getting older he was bedbound or in a wheelchair and switched from making large paintings and murals to working by cutting directly into coloured sheets of paper. Big pair of scissors, big sheets prepared by his helpers, painted with gouache, bold colours, blues, yellows, oranges. So you should have some paper and some scissors to do this. I prefer a kind of, rather than the lightest paper, something a bit heavier, twice the gauge of photocopy paper at least. So it's got a bit of rigidity to it. I call this drawing with scissors. With this method, we start simply with source images. I usually use something from Matisse, one of his plant forms or underwater seaweed forms, the flowing, semi-abstract. As well as this, you can find spring flowers, trees' branches, leaves blooming, flower buds coming out, this sort of thing. So a good form that you can easily cut around and you write and explore. I always start this way because you're trying to build up confidence with the technique. The technique is very direct. You don't get any second chances. You just go for it. And once you've done a couple of them, repetition's good as well. Matisse used to do loads of them and cover the walls with them. I recommend that. And once you've conquered the technique after a couple, you can use different source materials that are more complex and usually look at different elements like the air. So you can look at clouds that are simple and then move on to birds that are more complex with their wings, splayed, beaks and bigger details like that, and move through those with broad strokes. And then add some human activity after that. So maybe people diving off diving boards or acrobats, this sort of thing. Or if it was more land-based, you could have dancers. Anyway, back to the beginning and get your source material with you and take a moment, look at a Matisse snowflower or one of his other plant forms. When you have a source material, this is a quick note and it's to do with your neck and my neck as well. Because you're going to be cutting at something and you're going to be looking at a screen, if your images are in a Zoom class or put up onto a TV set, or it's going to be photocopied and in front of you, it's a good idea to have a bit of tape and tape it up so that you're looking and doing the activity in the same eye line, and it stops having to nod and move your head up and down lots of times. It can get very wearing on your neck, so that's just a side tip. And now we'll move into the method. So you have your source. It'll be one of Matisse's snowflowers or a simple spring bud sort of image, and look at the form in this image, the solid form in it, and find an edge, find a boundary of any sort, and let your eye follow a continuous line around its edge. And your scissors are going to be snipping in the same speed and direction as your eye travels around this form. So take a moment to look at Matisse's flower image, or any other source material that you've got prepared. I have this one here and it's got a few different ones to pick from. So I think I'm going to go for this white one in the middle. And I'm going to put it in front of me so it's easy to look at, so I'm not craning my neck too much with lots of nodding movement. to look between the page and the source image. So let's put it there. Now Matisse had a way of cutting. I'm going to demonstrate it with this sheet before I do the thing itself. Rather than snipping with the tips of the scissors, where you get very staccato, chop, 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 it's lots of movements. What he did was position the scissors right at the bottom, you can see like that, and then he turned the page into the snip. And this means you can get a nice fluid mark, you can get a long fluid mark, and you can keep on turning the page into a snip and you get fluid curves, as you can see with that. Now I'm going to do one quickly from my source material so you get the idea. It's a good idea to do a few of these as well. Lots of repetition, as the man himself did. And the sounds in the background, that's important because you're using sounds with what we're cutting. But depending on which element you want, you could choose the sky. So you could be doing cutouts of birds and clouds. And if you want a human element in there as well, skydivers and acrobats and people moving through the air as if they're flying. But start with something simple first and move on to the more complex forms once you've got a hang of it. So I'm looking at that white image now and turning the page as I'm cutting. And this gives me much more strong and fluid cuts. There we go. And it's nice in this slightly stouter paper to cut into, because it holds its form as you're cutting it. I've cut with the thinner ones, and by accident you often pick up 2 or 3 sheets at the same time. Now Matisse used to get his assistants to pin these up on the wall once he'd done them. And in a day you can cover a wall with a mural of the sky or under the water or wherever you choose. I'll just be quiet for a moment while I do this tricky full turn here. And I'm coming back round to the beginning. Get back to myself. Oh, there we go. It bears a slight resemblance to the white form in the middle. But we're not looking for perfection here. We're looking at getting a very direct technique for working with drawing. Oh, and the negatives are fantastic too. You can place them on other coloured sheets. There we go. It's hiding around the back. But I think you get the idea. You get 2 for the price of 1. And in no time at all, you get a big collection of these and come up with ideas of how you can snowball this process into composition, how you put the elements together, how you layer them, and maybe turn them into paintings and use them as a starting point for something else. But the main thing is you're drawing directly. You don't need any skill beforehand. You just need to be able to hold paper and scissors and see whatever your source is beforehand. And any sound effects you have, add to the conversation, add to the group feel, and can immerse you in the space of the thing that you're cutting out. So choose music, but choose sound effects that echo the activity that you're doing. One favourite that we used was from the archives was a budgie called Sparky Williams. And there was a lot of debate about whether it was really the budgie, but if you listen to that as you're cutting out a bird form, there's certainly lots of conversation from that.
My name is Sparky Williams, 34 Broadview Drive, Forest Hall. Forest Hall. Now, they call me Pretty Sparky. I'm just a little bird, but I can talk and chatter all the day. Nursery rhymes. The coulterdales behind a little lamb, its foot as black as soot, and everywhere that Mary went, his sucky, futty, putty, put, put.